President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on Wednesday has directed that Nigerians' land and air borders with the Republic of Niger should be open. He also announced the lifting of other sanctions against the country with immediate effect. This directive is in compliance with the decisions of the ECOWAS Authority of Head of State and Government at its extraordinary summit on February 24, 2024 in Abuja, according to the statement read by Ajuri Ngalali, Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. Recall that ECOWAS leaders has agreed to lift economic sanctions against the Republic of Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. The President, in compliance with the ECOWAS decision, directed that the sanction imposed on the Republic of Niger be lifted immediately. This statement also stated that President Tinubu also approved the lifting of financial and economic sanctions against the Republic of Guinea. The sanctions were imposed by the Authority of Head of State of Government and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, following the disruptions of the democratically elected government of countries and the imposition of military governments in those countries. Below are the following sanctions that have been lifted. Number 1. Closure of land and air borders between Nigeria and Niger Republic, as well as ECOWAS no-fly zone on all commercial flights to and fro Niger Republic. Number 2. Suspension of all commercial and financial transactions between Nigeria and Niger, as well as freeze of all service transactions, including utility services and electricity to Niger Republic. Number 3. Freeze of assets of Republic of Niger in ECOWAS central banks and freeze of assets of the Republic of Niger, state enterprises and parastatals in commercial banks. Number 4. Suspension of Niger from all financial assistance and transactions with all financial institutions, particularly EPID and BOAD. Number 5. Travel bans on government officials and their family members. Someone described the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu as government of initial gragra. Now, for those of you that may not be aware, now this is the backstory to what led to the sanction in the first place. In July 2023, there was a coup in Niger Republic where the democratically elected president Bazoum was overthrown by the very people who were supposed to protect and uphold his office. These were the presidential guard who stood and watched outside his palace. These mutiny soldiers cited worsening security situation and suffering as the reason for their uprising. Surprisingly, the people reacted happily to the situation as they took to the street to celebrate the coupists. The military juntas immediately cut ties with France, whose presence, according to them, was responsible for the economic woes of Niger Republic. The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, led by the newly sworn president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, immediately responded by giving the coup leaders deadline to restore the elected president back to power or face sanctions. This threat from ECOWAS fell on deaf ears. ECOWAS immediately placed sanctions on the Niger Republic coupists. President Tinubu went further to cut off bilateral ties with Niger Republic, thus placing a no-fly zone in Niger, cutting off electricity supply. And it was reported that he has ordered the Nigerian military to invade Niger Republic, an act that was seen by many, especially the northern senator, as an act of war. All this didn't deter the coupists as they immediately withdrawn from ECOWAS. It was reported that these coupists denied Tinubu access to use the fly zone in Niger Republic to land in Nigeria. After close to months of the sanction, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the ECOWAS, they've deemed it wise to lift up the sanction. Now, to what end? Why was the sanction in the first place? Why was Niger sanctioned? They are crying about military coup. What is worse about the military coup? Compare the military coup to what has happened to the democracy in Africa. Which one is better? Of course, we've had military regime before in Africa where men in uniform that has no knowledge of leadership take over power, and they could not perform well, they could not drive in dividends of democracy to the people. And yet we went to borrow democracy which is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But looking at what is happening in Africa, in the name of democracy, we are far from practicing democracy. What we are practicing in Africa today is government of the few, by the few, and for the few. The few privileged rich politicians. And of course, democracy is all about elected representative. But what we have in Africa today is not about election anymore, it's about selection. Once you have money, once you have power, once you have influence, you can buy your way into power and rule the people against their will. When this incident happened in Niger, that was when Nigeria just finished conducting her election and Bola Ahmed Tinubu was announced as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Of course, there was a huge illegitimate issue on the head of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The case was in court, of which it was deemed wise that there was this fit that INEC has compromised in the election that produced Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Yes, everyone was saying that the election that brought in Bola Ahmed Tinubu was not a free and fair election. And yet, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as the head of the ECOWAS, deemed it fit to sanction the military regime because according to him, he said they will not allow coup after coup in Africa. Whereas, we just experienced a political coup in Nigeria in the last election. The citizens in Nigeria, they were happy with the coupists because they felt relief. Under the democratically elected president, they were subjected to so much sufferings. They were not enjoying the dividends of democracy. They needed respite, they needed a savior. And the military junta took over. They celebrated. So why was ECOWAS G3? Just in Senegal, another West African state, the president, Macron, whose tenure is about to end, was seeking for a third term in office. He went ahead and suspending the election. ECOWAS did not flinch. They didn't do anything. Why were they flexing their muscles over the military regime? Who says the military regime is bad? If you compare it side by side with what is happening under democracy, what we are experiencing in Nigeria today is not democracy. It is not democracy. Just few days ago, we are hearing of budget padding. The legislature that was supposed to checkmate the executive, they are responsible for padding the budget. Nigerians are experiencing the worst regime in their life. High inflation rate, insecurity, where school children are being kidnapped, and the bandits are demanding for 40 trillion naira. Where is the security forces? Where are they? And then you're talking about democracy. Where is the democracy? Where it was signed into law that there's going to be electronic transmission of results. But yet, INEC reneged in that promise. And the judiciary stamped it. The rule of law was suspended. Democracy thrives in the rule of law. But we are not experiencing that in Nigeria. And yet you went ahead suspending and placing sanctions on Niger Republic because they have a military coup, of which your democracy is not better off than what the Nigerians are experiencing today. It's not better off. So to what end was that sanction? Everything is just making Nigeria a laughing stock. Because after all, you still went back to lift up the sanction. The people you sanctioned did not even flinch. They withdrew themselves from ECOWAS. And it was reported that when Bola Ahmed Tinubu wanted to use the fly zone of Niger Republic, the Nigerians gave him a warning that if they sight the Nigerian plane in their space, they are going to shoot it down. What an international disgrace. Nigeria was placed in the forefront for ridicule because of the action of one man, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Of course, it was reported that Bola Ahmed Tinubu was seeking for legitimacy from the West. And that was the reason why he was playing to their tone to sanction Niger. Because the military coup that happened in Niger Republic did not go well with the West. They didn't go well, of course. Niger has to exile France from their country. They even changed their language. They removed French as the official language. Cut off every ties from French, from France. So it was being reported that Bola Ahmed Tinubu was doing everything possible to make sure that he seek relevance in their face. And that was the reason why he went all out placing an international ban on Niger Republic. But today that ban has been lifted up. To what end? To what end?